Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This video is part 3 in my Celestial Butterfly series. And in this video we're going to go ahead and start adding in the big butterflies that are flying around in the galaxy. And so if you want to follow along with traditional materials such as acrylic or oil, check out part 1 in my series where I have a list of all the brushes and paints and the canvas that I use. The app that we're using is Infinite Painter for Android. And so I want to go ahead and add in the butterflies. But what I want to do is sketch these out in a separate piece of paper or a separate file, because I want to sort of figure out exactly how I want to put them in. And you definitely need to do this before you start to put these on top of your galaxy, because you don't want to have to paint your galaxy over again if you're following along traditionally. And it's a good idea also just to do this in a separate file digitally. So I've got several references from Pixabay of butterflies, and I just kind of wanted to see what positions and what poses that I wanted the butterflies to be in, and how big, and just kind of I decided that I wanted them to look kind of a triangle shape, in sort of a triangle shape there. So I went ahead and did that first, just to sketch that out, and definitely do that on a piece of tracing paper or a separate piece of paper if you're painting traditionally. And then here I went ahead and imported the file into Infinite Painter and put it in as a separate layer so that it looks like tracing paper. I knocked the transparency down, and then I'm moving it around just to see where I want to put it on my galaxy background. And of course you would definitely import this in as a separate layer. And if you're doing this traditionally, you would put this on some tracing paper where you can see or a clear transparency or something where you can see your bottom layer of the galaxies, because you don't want to start painting and then have to change it, because that will just really mess things up. So here I'm trying to add that in and bring up the photo references for my butterflies. And I want to go ahead and just kind of start on a totally separate layer, sketching in the butterflies. And I'm doing this with a real light sketchy brush in Infinite Painter. And what you would do in the traditional media situation is you would either put chalk on the back of your tracing paper, or take a piece of chalk and either draw over what you've got sketched on your tracing paper, or just sketch these poses in very lightly on your acrylic painting. Now if you're doing this with oils, you can also do this, but the bottom layer has to be completely dry in order to do this. And so here I'm just sketching them in, and with a very light blue color, and you would use ultramarine blue with white acrylic gesso if you're following along traditionally. And just kind of sketching the outline, because I don't want these butterflies to be solid. I want them to be transparent and be where the background shows through, because we want the stars to show through, and the planets, maybe the nebulas. We just want a little bit of those colors to show through, because I just want these to look transparent and fantasy-like and sort of blend in with the nebulas. And then here I'm adding a little bit of some light peach color, because I think that goes well with the look of the nebulas. So I picked blue and peach colored butterflies. You can have other colors if you want. You could add light oranges, but just make sure that everything stays transparent. And then here I'm adding a little bit of the black to the wings, and I would suggest a really dark purple, a really dark blue, not a totally solid black. And make sure that when you start painting it on your acrylic canvas, that you use a dry brush technique. So you can take your number 3 round and just put a little bit of paint on it and just very lightly brush over your chalk lines and start painting in the outline. And make sure that you don't use very much paint, because it's easier to add paint than it is to take away paint. So you definitely want to have a very light hand if you're doing this traditionally. Now, if you're doing this digitally, make sure it's on a separate layer so it won't mess up your galaxy in the background. Definitely make sure it's on a separate layer. And so that's what I'm doing here, and I'm adding a little bit of the dark color, and you can use one of the dry brush. There's a dry brush in Infinite Painter, and you can use one of the sparse bristle brushes that they have. Just any of those kind that will give you a streaky look, and there's several that will do that, like old oil or sort of a varnished look, or some of those. But anyway, you just want those kind of brushes. And so here I'm just kind of adding a little bit more light blue to the wings. Again, trying not to get rid of the transparency, because I still want these to, the background to show through these. So I'm trying not to kill all the background here, but I'm also trying to refine the look of the wings and work on the shape just a little bit better. And we just want sort of that sparse bristle look on these. And so as you can see, I was letting some of the stars shine through there, and if you have to, you can go back and make some dots and add some of the stars back on there. And here I'm just kind of playing around with the transparency, and I wanted to see what would it look like if I made these a little bit more transparent, and I decided they didn't show up as well, so I decided now I'll just go with what I had here. But I wanted to go ahead and sort of erase them down a little, because I got them a little bit too dark, too opaque. So I went back with my eraser and used the cloudy eraser to kind of get rid of some of that look that I decided it was just a little bit too opaque. And then here I'm going back with some of the brushes that will give it a jagged look in Infinite Painter, and also making sure that the feelers, their antennae, I guess you would call them, that they're straighter looking and they have a little bit of a bump on the end, and just kind of refining the butterfly's body and making a thinner line there. I decided the line looked a little too thick, so I'm just going ahead and going back over that. What I would suggest if you're doing this traditionally is get it right the first time, because it's awful to try to go and fix it. So just start with thin lines like this and just work your way up to thicker lines so that you don't have as much trouble. So this is the end of my Celestial Butterflies Part 3 video. And in Part 4, we're going to go ahead and finish out the butterflies and finish out the painting. So if you want to see how this ends, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. and I will catch you later.